necessary if you want to be successful. So let's all welcome Maria.
Hi, everybody. Oh, there we go. Thanks, Natasha. Okay. So, when I introduce myself, the first thing I start with is my passion, and that is musical theater. If you don't know what that is, it's a combination of singing, acting, and dancing on stage simultaneously to tell a story, and it's wonderful. But there's this misconception that musical theater is a frivolous activity, meaning that it lacks serious purpose or value. But that's a misconception that we're going to quash today, because in reality, there are many skills that musical theater offers that can show all of you guys in the audience today how to be successful. So let's start with this. How many of you want to be successful? Great. Okay, then this presentation is for all of you. Minor issues in the presentation, that's fine. Anyway, just while we wait for that to get fixed, I want to thank you guys all for coming. Let's give you a round of applause for showing up. Awesome, we're back up. You guys did a great job putting on top. Anyway, so musical theater teaches universally applicable skills that will help all of you be successful in any situation that you may find yourself in. And I'm going to show you how that's possible today. So the way that this is going to work is I'm going to walk you through the process of doing a musical, step by step or phase by phase, as I have organized it, to show you exactly what doing a musical means. But as we go through this, I'm also going to highlight the skills that are widely useful as we go through to show exactly how musical theater can teach all of us to be successful people. Okay, so first phase is the audition. So if you want to be a musical, obviously you have to audition for a musical. But before you can have a good audition, you have to prepare. Okay, so what does this mean? You need to research the show. You need to find out what's the plot of the show, who are the characters, what music is in this show. And as you're gathering this information about the musical that you're auditioning for, you need to always be thinking, okay, where do I see myself in this show? Where can I fit the best? Because what makes a musical theater audition successful is understanding what role you can most realistically play in the show. I mean, there are some limitations that you have to take into account. Obviously, I probably won't be playing a male romantic lead anytime soon in a musical, but there are more subtle differences as well. Is your voice a classical voice that is more for opera or mid-19th century musicals, or do you have more of a pop rock influenced voice that's good for contemporary musicals? All these things come together to create your talent, and as an actor, you need to understand what the strengths and weaknesses of your talent are. You need to understand the nuances of that. So you need to familiarize yourself with the strengths and weaknesses that you have as a performer. Okay, but don't you see, this skill of understanding your strengths and weaknesses is more applicable to just auditioning for a musical. This skill can be used in almost any situation in the real world that I can ever think of. For example, if you are in a collaboration meeting in a business, and you know your strengths and your weaknesses, just like a musical theater audition would teach you, you know exactly what you can bring to the table. Or if you're applying for a job, you can market what you're good at. You unenthusiastic facial expression, and it can be nerve-wracking because you're like, oh gosh, did I just mess up, or did they think I'm really good? I don't know. So, through this lesson of these unreadable facial expressions, you learn to carry yourself with confidence no matter what reaction you're getting, no matter the situation. Through auditioning for musicals, you learn that you need to hold yourself with poise no matter what happens. And thirdly, as part of being an audition, you not only are showing your talent, but more importantly, you're showing your personality. You want to show in 120 seconds or less that yes, you're qualified, but more importantly, you're someone that they would want to work with. Raise your hand if, as a director, you would want to cast a diva. Yeah. Raise your hand if, as a director, you would want to cast someone that can't take direction. That's what I thought. And so that's exactly what they're looking for. They don't want to, as a director, they don't want to end up with some person who, yeah, they can sing their face off, but they don't ever show up on time, and they're never prepared, and they never have their lines memorized. And that's all going into this idea that in 120 seconds or less of an audition, you need to present yourself in the best possible light. But don't you see, this is also a skill that we can have outside the walls of theater. In a college interview or a job interview, in a short amount of time, you need to make an impression that is memorable and positive. Also, whenever you're meeting someone at a party or a networking event, this skill is a skill that never expires. And fourthly, before we move on to phase 2 of musical theater, there's rejection. Okay, so I'm not going to lie, rejection is abundant in any discipline of show business. But as a musical theater actor, you learn that you can't take no as something that is going to stress you out or demotivate, or act as something that will stop you from being motivated. Does that make sense? So instead, you need to take that no and you pick yourself up and use that to feed your fire, or whatever they say, I don't know. But just the idea that you need to take that in stride and you work and you become better for it. Okay. But let's stop talking about rejection because nobody likes to talk about that. And instead, let's assume that you've got cast. So what happens now? You finish phase 1 successfully, and now you enter phase 2, the rehearsal. Okay, so what do you do in a rehearsal? It just means practice, as most of you guys know, and it's just what it sounds like. You are practicing with the other actors and the other elements and the technical things and the sets on stage so that your performance is ready to be performed live, like an audience like yourself. A lot of things that happen in rehearsal include you need to memorize your lines. You need to memorize the dances, the choreography. You need to know how you work with other people on stage. But as you do these things, you are proving that you are consistently reliable. A smart teacher once told me that you are always auditioning because people are constantly looking at you and saying, okay, did she show up prepared today? Did she have her lines memorized? Is she ready to go? Because no one wants to work with someone that's only sporadically reliable. So through musical theater and the rehearsal process specifically, we learn the importance of reliability. And we also learn that we need to hold ourselves to high standards. Even if nobody's looking, you need to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward all the time. And of course, this is important in other situations other than musical theater, and I don't really need to lay out how it's possible for you all, or why it's necessary to show yourself in a good light and to work hard. Now, the last 2 parts of the rehearsal process that are helpful in situations other than musical theater is time commitment and time management. Because musical theater rehearsals, obviously they require a lot of time. So I not only have to commit to being at these rehearsals, but I also have to figure out, okay, if I have a 5-hour rehearsal tonight, how am I going to get my homework done? So these skills are obviously important in the rehearsal process of musical theater, but they're also important in everyday life to be successful. Okay, so here's the fun part, performance, phase 3. Okay, so that mock audition that you saw when I was in the center a few minutes ago, that was actually a real audition that I did a few springs back for the musical called Aida. And it actually landed me the part that I wanted, which was Princess Amneris. Amneris was an Egyptian pharaoh. She was an airhead, but most of all, she was excited beyond belief about fashion. Okay, so that's not like me at all. Anybody knows me. And so it was a huge stretch for me to play this Egyptian princess that knew nothing, or at least pretended to know nothing. And that's the first point I'd like to emphasize through the performance aspect. That through performance, do is, I'm going to walk you through a scene that I was playing, that I was in as a nurse, and show you exactly how much out of my comfort zone I was put. Okay, so that's obviously me, right there. Okay, so this is a scene in Act 1 in which I am talking to my handmaidens about, gee, I love fashion. So I start singing about how much I love fashion, because that's what we do in musical theater. We start dancing, because that's also what we do. Okay, now, you're going to see right here that the wall is actually going to open up. And I run off stage, and out comes a runway. And what's going to happen is, her handmaidens, and there's my character's handmaidens, they come out modeling her clothes, just to help her decide what to wear that day, I guess. And it turns out into this big spectacle. Until eventually, I come out, significantly taller, you might know, but we'll get to that in a second. But I have to act completely full of myself, like a complete fashion diva, and we just talked about how nobody wants to be a diva in musical theater, so it's a complete contradiction. But I have to carry myself like nobody's business, and obviously that's out of my comfort zone. Okay. So you notice that I talked about being a little bit taller in this picture than me without the heels on, which is about 4'11" and a half or 5 feet on a good day. In fact, my director never let me forget that I was almost a foot shorter than all of my other co-stars in the show. He was always like, Maria, can't you just grow a foot in a week? I'm like, no, I'm sorry. So he had a different idea, which did not involve cutting the legs off of my co-stars, mind you. Instead, his solution to make me taller were these. These are leather boots that went up to my knees. They were 8 inches tall in the back. Okay, mind you, we're still talking about out of your comfort zone. I don't think I need to make the connection very obvious here. So these weren't that big of a deal, these boots, except for one scene in Act 2, which you see here. I would be standing on these little nice stairs platforms, and some of my maidens would come to dress me because I was getting prepared for my wedding. Not really important, but anyway, I just found out that my fiance is only pretending to be in love with me, so that's why I'm upset at it's my wedding day. And so, okay, you can see the boots, right? They're crazy. Okay, so what's happening here is they're taking my robe off to show that I'm indeed in my wedding attire. It's very symbolic. It shows that even though she's royal, like she doesn't have any control over her life. So there are those things, 8 inches. Okay, so they didn't think that standing on 8-inch stilts and being on stairs was enough out of my comfort zone. So my director, Rocco, he said, okay, put a veil on her because she's getting married. That makes sense. Cool. Now the veil's gonna go around your whole body. Okay. So this thing is super tight, and it basically pins my feet together and my arms together to my body. And if you know anything about being on stilts, basically, you start to lose your balance. So that was a little bit of a stretch. But it gets even more. He was like, great, you look very safe. Now walk down those stairs. Awesome. Okay. So let's recap. Wearing those boots, walking downstairs. put everything that was going to be on this next scene backwards, and then turn into the scene to reveal what was, the next stage picture. Good so far? Now, the whole stage pictures were mostly made of these things called Billy blocks, or Billy boxes. There's those little boxes you see in the back. So how we would create our stage pictures is, you and a partner, you would go get like a box from a tower of boxes that were off the side of the stage. You pick up one side, your partner would be on the other, and you'd scurry when the lights glow, and you'd drop it there in your assigned spot, and you'd walk off stage. Every person in the cast would do this for every scene change, each having their own box, and you would create a stage picture like this. But mind you, because we had the turntable, you actually had to, if you wanted the box to end up there, you had to put it over here, which is fine. Like through rehearsals, you learn where you need to put the boxes so that you know where they end up. But when it comes to adapting the unexpected, one time in Les Mis, during one of the performances, we get word in the middle of the show that the turntable has stopped working. Great. Okay, so what does that mean? That means every box that you used to put up here, you now have to put down here and facing the other way. And it's not just easy enough that you carry a box, you have to carry this box with another person. So while we're in the middle of doing makeup and preparing to go on stage as our characters, we're trying to figure out, okay, I moved this box with you in this first scene, so we need to put it over here. And it's just a mess. So you have to try not to have a meltdown while you quickly adapt to this scenario that you never thought would happen. Okay, so let's recap. Why do we do musical theater? To understand your strengths and weaknesses, first and foremost, because that way, in the real world, you know what you can offer and what you can bring to the table, and also how to compensate for the weaknesses that you have and build on them. You also need to learn to carry yourself with confidence, because things don't always go the way that you wish, or people don't always have a reaction that you wish that they did have, but you have to act as if it's not bothering you. You need to learn to leave a lasting, positive impression when you make an interview, or you do an interview, or you meet someone so that they remember you in a good way, and you have to recover from rejection. You also have to be consistently reliable, hold yourself to high standards, learn the value of commitment and time management. And thirdly, you need to not be afraid to go out of your comfort zone, and you need to quickly adapt to the unexpected. These are all hallmarks of successful people, and they're all skills that I've learned through musical theater, and I'm confident that anyone who does musical theater will also learn. So when you hear that a musical is coming up and auditions are next